And welcome to another fascinating episode of Real Talk. Today, our guest is coming from straight from the ground in China, Mr. Paul Jolley from Cooka. Hi,
Hey,
Paul.
Mark.
How are
How you
you?
doing? I'm great, thanks, brother. It's a bit late here at night, but I'm still awake.
Well, thanks for coming on the Real Talk. I know it's probably about 11, 12 o'clock at night in China, but I really wanted to have this talk with you because you're on the ground in China. And in electronics world, really what's going on in the ground down there, and giving us an insight to everybody listening to really what's going on, because I think a lot of people have heard what's going on in China, electronics market manufacturing, and also the of course the pandemic and how everything is going on with that. But because for me, it's really fascinating to hear from someone that's on the ground and really is in the beat of things, in the daily hustle, to see really what's going on. And also yourself being in the electronics industry, what are you doing in electronics industry, and what things have changed? So I really appreciate for coming on and taking the time for us and staying up late. But first, I want to start with, who is Paul Jolley?
Hey, Rob. Really nice to be on the show. I've been following you on social media, and I'm very, very impressed with what you're doing specifically in the electronics industry. And that's why we've had a few Zoom chats, and now you've invited me on the show, and I'm very excited to talk about my situation here and what's going on over there.
Awesome, awesome. So I mean, how long have you been in China?
I've been in Zhongshan, China, or more to the point, the Greater Bay Area, which is in Guangdong, the south part of China, for 20 years. 20 years.
Wow, 20 years. So you have seen the full industrial revolution of China, the growth, correct?
I've seen China from paddy fields to the growth that it is now. And I'm really impressed with, and that's why I've stuck around, because there's a lot of things happening here, a lot of things happening.
So what took you to China?
It's a long story, and it involved a woman, and we won't go into that just here. But anyway, when I first arrived here in China 20 years ago, I just smelt the opportunity and innovation that was happening, and more to the point, the work ethic. I mean, they're really hard-working people here, so I stuck around.
Yeah, how long have you been in the electronics industry?
Actually, for the electronics industry, I originally went into it when I was a boy. My father was a manager of a fruit machine operation in the United Kingdom. We call them fruit machines in the US, you call them slot machines. But basically, I was from roots up as a service engineer, repairing video games, fruit machines, all these sorts of things. So I was on the ground as an engineer.
Awesome. I know it's fascinating. It's like how you've been there, because personally myself, I've been traveling to China for 20 years, and I've seen it. I haven't been living there, but I spent maybe 3 to 4 months on average per year in China per the past 20 years, because of the growth in electronics field, and a lot of our customers have transitioned in the manufacturing out there. But really overall, so can you give me a timeline of when you went to China?
First came to China, I came
Correct.
in 2001, and at that time I was more involved in B2C and digital marketing, because it was just one of my passions. So I jumped into that field, as it were.
So let's take a step back. I think all our listeners right now want to understand, what did you see when the pandemic started in China in January of 2020? What really was happening? What did you hear? Your ear on the ground, on the streets. Really, what was happening? And can you give us some of that experience, hands-on? Really, what did you see, and how the government was acting, and how the people handled this pandemic?
Okay, so I was here during the very start. Actually, I haven't left for maybe a year and a half now.
Hmm.
I was back in England back in July, so I never left. I was always here. And during the pandemic, uh, they just took it very, very, very seriously from the beginning. And it was a case of everybody wear masks, and it
Yeah.
wasn't an if, ands, or buts. It was everyone wear masks. And during the lockdown, everybody stay at home. And in fact, I remember it was only one person allowed out of the household per day, and that was just for 1 or 2 hours to go and get essential groceries and then back again. And that went on for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then slowly, 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 they allowed it to open. But still, everybody, I mean, I was in the office and everybody was wearing the masks. And slowly, only now, going months on now, that people are starting to walk around with no masks. Even today, I still see people around still wearing masks, but now it's less and less, and things have basically gone back to normal. Well, not normal as such as normal, because we still have in a pocket a mask whenever there's a crowded area and we're feeling a little bit uncomfortable. But in general, it's no masks.
Well, I mean, extremely fascinating compared to other parts of the world of what's happening and how the China handled this. And I know most factories have been opened. I think since probably middle February to end of February, I think a majority of factories did reopen. I think in specific areas, I think the some of the harder hit took a little longer till March, but that's what I wanted to understand from you of really being on the ground. Really, what was your experience? How did you feel? How was your safety? Did you feel, and how was the media on the ground and the Chinese government handling the situation?
My personal opinion is the Chinese handled it really well,
Okay.
and I felt really safe. Straight away, they had a green QR code which you had to scan on your phone. So I remember one time I drove around the bay to Shenzhen, and I was a little bit worried because not so many foreigners here in China at this time. We were classed as it's coming in from abroad. So I had to go through a police check and a whole scan and everything,
Yeah.
just to drive a couple hundred kilometers. And it was a little bit scary, but they were taking it very seriously. I mean, my own self, I felt completely safe because they've got so much. I don't want to say control, but they've just got the act together, if you know what I mean. And I don't say that bad for
Yeah.
anybody else, because I only hear bits from the news. I just know what's going on here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you brought up something like this app. What did this app do, and how did it operate for knowing, what was it all about for this testing of the app?
So basically, they have a master app, let's call it, in China called WeChat, and everybody has it. I know yourself also has it as well. We communicate. But basically, everything in China is QR codes.
Okay.
If you want to buy a cup and there's a QR code on it, you just scan it and it takes you to a little shop, or it's called a mini app,
Hmm.
and you can purchase the cup. And it was the same thing with for the coronavirus. You could scan this little QR code, which will take you to a mini app,
Hmm.
and from there it will tell you where you've been. So if I go into an office in Shenzhen and I just scan it, it'll tell me where that QR code was, and then I go somewhere else and it tells me where I previously was. And there's a green, I think there's a red, and another color. I don't know the other colors. Just know I've always been green. I've been okay.
Well, well, that's good. So the colors, so they basically, when you check in, I think because as some people might know, the massive form of transportation in China is public transportation. The subways and the trains and the high speed rail, and also airlines as well. So I think when you go into each one of those the provinces or around China, so you check in, right? So they check you, so they kind of track where you are, correct?
Yes, they track where you are, wherever you go,
Okay.
particularly during the pandemic time. I mean, just go into your home garden. I mean, a lot of the way that we live over here in China is we have gated communities.
Okay.
And the very luxurious gated communities, don't get me wrong, with
Yeah.
nice swimming pools and everything else, but you have to still go through security. And even that was a QR code. And basically it had something like this.
Okay.
which says, I've got a green code, I'm good to go, you know?
So, I mean, I would understand that the app tracks to make sure that you weren't in a because if they can track all the people in China or where they've been located, they know where the hotspots are, and if you've been exposed to a hotspot, I think your color will change from green to maybe orange or red because you might have been exposed during that time. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
As far as I know the system, because I just know Paul scan that QR code when you go in there. Yay, I'm green, I'm good to go, right?
Yeah.
But I think the way the Chinese have done it is really highlighted everything because, you know, if you do get coronavirus now, they've got so many hospitals available, which they built, remember. So you get treatment straight away, and the vaccine's just around the corner. So everybody is putting the guard down a little bit.
When it The big question I have is how your experience is. How did the experience come to testing? Have you ever got tested, or how did they process the testing? Did everybody get tested? How is that working?
Okay, as far as the testing is concerned, I know a lot about this because I cooperate with a manufacturer just down the road here in Zhongshan, and they produce a test kit. Now, there's three different kinds of test kits. There's the rapid test kit, there's a hospital test kit, and there's a nucleic acid test kit.
Okay.
So the Chinese were mainly using the nucleic acid test kit. The other one is antibody test. But basically, this manufacturer I'm working with, you just take some blood, and it's basically like a diabetes test. And within 10 minutes, you can see whether your antibodies are fighting against the coronavirus, which means you have the coronavirus. Yeah. And there's a 3 to 5 day window when the antibodies come out and attack. So yeah, they were using mainly the nucleic acid test where they put the thing down your throat and test, and also the antibody test.
Interesting, because as I said, everybody, you know, here in the U.S. and I think different areas, Europe, different regions of the world, I think testing is there, but the biggest thing is testing, and it's keeping everybody safe, and because especially in China, as I know, I've spent a lot of time there. The public transportation, people, like, social distancing is a big thing here in the U.S. Everybody social distance, but in China, when you want to travel, social distancing can't really happen 6 feet because there's thousands of people, millions of people traveling every day in a subway or a train around to get around, or a bus. So, and I know that the Chinese all were very common to wear masks. So do you think the mask wearing was a big help and a proactive for basically holding this virus back from transmitting from each other? Or, you know, how is your experience with that? What's your insight?
Okay, I've seen a lot of the controversy on the news about wearing masks. I don't want it to be too controversial, but it worked. The mask worked, and that was the end of it. I mean, the mask is to protect you from other people. So, I mean, it's a social responsibility that if you think you've got a cold, you don't want to pass it on. And the Chinese people, or the Asian people, I don't want to just say Chinese people because I'm in China, but the Asian people, they respect the other person, and they say, okay, if I've got a cold, I'm going to wear a mask so you don't get my cold. And it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have that experience myself, even traveling to our Asia offices. People will come in who think they have a cold. We're always wearing a mask, and it was very common, even back then, before this pandemic, that people, you know, sometimes 2 or 3 people in my office will wear a mask. And as I said, it's just respect to the others that they don't transmit anything that could go around. But I think that's why it was so easy for people to wear the mask.
Exactly. It's like a cultural small thing, you know, it's just, I mean, to be fair, when the height of the pandemic was happening, going on a cramped train, it's not something you wanted to do anyway, with or without a mask, you know?
Correct. You know, all I mean, that's a social distancing, the surface touching and all that was there. But, you know, that's really good insight. That's what I want to understand, really the perspective that you have actually being on the ground, being, you know, spending 20 years of your life in China, and the evolution of what's happened. And now the biggest thing that's happened in the world is this pandemic. No matter where it came from, how it came to about, it's everybody's dealing with it, and every country has their own rules, regulations, and to get with it and put this behind us, right? And it seems like China is on the forefront of already kind of putting this behind them and moving forward, which is very fascinating to me. Especially, we see a lot of stuff in the images and news, and there's like concerts and things happening in China again, and big gatherings again. Since here in the U.S., it's been very hard to have those type of gatherings, and businesses are affected. A lot of stuff is affected. But another question I have is, how was the business side? Did the Chinese government also give back to a lot of the businesses that had challenges, had to close down for 3 to 4 to 5 or a couple months? How did that work? Do you know any supplementation? Do you know anything that happened with that?
I mean, as far as the manufacturer is concerned, because I'm a manufacturer myself,
Correct.
and a lot of my friends are manufacturers, Chinese and international friends.
Yeah.
And a lot of the places, they just closed the factories down, and that was it. That
Yeah.
was it, closed it down. And then when they realized, oh shit, this is going to really affect the economy, and
Yeah.
us as manufacturers are going to say, let's open, give us the rules on how we need to do. That's when they put some strict rules in place. With social distancing, and they really came in with the rules, having people come around and clean, having everywhere you go, you have the temperature check,
Mm-hmm.
everyone must wear masks, but they just put all these systems in place, especially for manufacturers, that allowed the workforce to get back to work.
Yeah, I
And
mean, yeah, I can really share my experience of this, and I tell a lot of my people and network that February 5th of 2019, this pandemic already started in China. I was in India, at our operations in India, and my VP in China sent me a letter that we had to have a guidelines of how to reopen our office in Shenzhen. The guidelines went over. It was in Mandarin. They had to translate it for me because I had to sign off on it. It was about how the PPE, sanitary testing, temperature testing multiple times a day with all the staff in the day coming in and out. Everything had to be sanitary. And then a local government agent would come audit us about a week later. So in February 14th, probably 10 days after that, I signed that we're going to have everything in order. A government agent came to our office, signed off on it, said, okay, you guys are clear to open. You guys can open February 17th. So February 17th, we opened, and we've been open since. So it's, as you say, it's fascinating, and it's very how quickly they adapted, and everybody adapted to the rules and regulations. And we never had one case in our office. We never had anything case. You know, we're in the heart in Shenzhen, actually office in Futian. There's millions of people traveling every day, and also our sales. Some of our people were stuck in Hubei province. Some places it took them about a month to even come back because I know those regulations of quarantine to come back to different provinces. So by the middle of March, everybody ended up coming back. It wasn't like right away, but everybody that was in Shenzhen got to come back to the office and work every day still. But it was very fascinating how fast they adapted, and you said the rules and regulations and put it into place. You know, so that to me, as I said, that story that you say, we felt it. Since I haven't been there since 2019. I haven't been able to travel. I don't think I will be able to travel till 2021 at least back to the Asia region. But it's, as I said, it's very fascinating to me. So moving forward of this, how have the question for you is how's the living conditions? Has anything changed in living conditions? Have they improved? Have they got bad? How is that going on?
Well, to be honest, a lot of the small businesses closed down, like the restaurants, and some of the manufacturers were really paying in as well.
Yeah.
Very difficult time, especially because a lot of the manufacturers are exporting to the West, and because the West is in a difficult time as well, everybody's in a difficult time. China needs the West as much as the West needs China. I mean, it's a win-win, right? So yeah, I mean, a lot of businesses were severely affected here. I remember my good friend Gordon Stiles. He was particularly worried, and he put a lot more emphasis on marketing and sales. So saying that, what Chinese people did was they looked more towards digital and doing things like we're doing now, because they can't do the exhibitions, and this is what they're worried about now, how to get the new products and the new things coming out to show to the West. I mean, it's still a big issue now. It's because, I mean, me as a manufacturer, I want to go to Germany in November to the biggest electronics exhibition in Europe to show my new innovation. And that's going to be difficult for me. So if it's difficult for me as a manufacturer, it's going to be difficult for everybody as a manufacturer.
So why don't you give us a little background of, since you're manufacturing electronics, give a little background about Cooka and what your company does and what type of solutions you provide to the industry.
Thank you for asking, Rob. I do appreciate it. Give myself a little plug,
Yeah.
as it were. Cooka is an industry that focuses on microelectronics, and particularly the potentiometer or the sensor or the variable resistor. It's got a bunch of names, and it comes in all shapes and sizes. This is the fader from lighting and audio. This is the motor fader for lighting and audio. This is the power to switch. Then this is your just normal little variable standard resistor. And our key selling point, our differentiation, because we are an innovative company, we're using a silver paste technology, which allows the wear of the board to be 10 times better than what technology was being used before. I mean, bearing in mind this is a 100-year-old industry, so these products go into many, many different kinds of products, end products, and we've just innovated it to be 10 times longer lifespan. So that's Cooka, that's who we are.
So as I said, your innovation, I saw that you guys put in some, you guys went into a competition for innovation or a startup as a new company, and you guys are putting your products in there. And it's very fascinating. As I said, it's the innovation and the durability of building longer, more durable, more efficient products. Because that's, at the end of the day, it comes to quality. And people don't like to have failures in their products. They want to have longer durability. And it comes with a price as well. It does come with a price to have longer durability.
I want to stop you there because we're entering the market at the same price as everybody else. The market price is the market price.
Correct.
But we're just adding value by adding 10 times longer. And in my opinion, if you invest in time, it's a good investment. Because I remember myself as a service engineer fixing the video driving game machines, and I replaced so many of these small parts you just wouldn't believe. You know, I was working for 5 years with Carnival Cruise Lines out of America, out of Miami, and it was difficult to get parts because you're out at sea all the time. So this whole machine, which was a $10,000 machine, was not working just because of this little part. Yeah. So I'm very happy that I'm involved in innovation and I've designed a part to fix a problem. That's all we do as entrepreneurs. We find a problem, which I had when I was younger, and I fixed it.
You find a solution for the problem. So going back to that, so how is the production for manufacturing, and how are factory visits very common, or how are, as I know before were very common, but how are they when going to facilities? Is it very easy to get into a facility? Do you have to be tested? How is that interacting on a daily basis?
Okay, we have our own testing equipment, and I'm just about to set up a video and actually have this on a machine and ticks away, and you can see that this is 10 million cycles instead of 300,000 cycles. So I'm just about to sort that out, but I've been busy because right now all the exhibitions in Guangdong, and there's many, I've just opened. Everyone's still wearing the mask, but it's all open. So I'm busy going to all these exhibitions and showing my innovation and shaking hands with all the people. And I'm tired.
No, that's no problem. That's what I want to understand. So that what that answers is, so in-person meetings and factory visits are now open for people to do right now. Exhibitions, in-person meetings. So it is now common to do that, because compared to here in the U.S., in-person meetings is very challenging. Of course, there's no exhibitions. I don't know if there will be any in the next year, till the rest of this year. So I wanted to understand the perspective of how that's working for introducing a new product introduction, and also visiting factories for innovation and the supply chain.
I'm on the ground, as you know, and I've visited already 5 exhibitions, and as you know yourself, these exhibitions are huge. And I know from going to these 5, there's people walking around, security as anything with these big exhibitions, but they're all put your mask up, put your mask up. Yeah. So they're all very conscious that a lot of group of people are coming together, and potentially international as well, for regular meetings like going to visit a manufacturer, again, I think it's all courtesy. If you think you've got the coronavirus, you're going to keep your mask on, or if you think you've got a flu. But once you sit down to a meeting, it's just kind of in the air that I'm okay.
Okay.
And if I take my mask off, I'm telling that other person I'm okay, right? You can check my green thing if you want, right? But yeah, it's still a little bit nervous, but everyone's back and everyone's doing the business. I would say for the exhibitions, all the exhibitors are there, but not so many customers. So it gives me a huge advantage because I have this foreign face. When I walk up to the exhibit, they're like, "Oh, foreigner, come and talk to us." So it's a real great icebreaker. But of course, I'm not talking to them to buy something from them. I'm actually selling them something, you know.
How is your Mandarin?
My Mandarin, I understand maybe 60 to 70%, but speaking, I would say 30%.
Okay.
But you know, with exhibitions, they always have an English-speaking person on the exhibition. So, and I always take my staff as well, so that they can follow up with the leads and everything. So it's no problem. It's no problem.
No, that's what I want to understand. How's that working? So how overall is the economy in China right now? I mean, it was hit by the pandemic, these tariffs, the big politics going wrong. How does it feel on the ground of the economy? Is it thriving? Is it slowed down? How do you feel right now?
Okay, in my opinion, and I don't want to get too controversial, but from what I see, China's back to full max and busy getting what they need to do. And in fact, this month is more so because they can start, well, everybody can feel that the Western markets are starting to open as well. So everyone's preparing everything, their orders, their strategies, and everything. And from what I can feel myself and talking to a lot of other people and talking to the government as well, everybody is busy this month putting everything into place. So yeah, from the ground level, we're full on max, fully open manufacturers, fully open businesses, and we're pushing for business and market share. And yeah, everything's full max here in China.
That's good to hear. It's a positive. It's just everything's thriving and opened, and the domestic market, as I know, the domestic market is getting a bigger because the middle class is growing. There's more demand for their own products. But and how it's affected because other worlds, other countries are affected, and most of them are shut down. They're running at 50% capacity. So a lot of the products are not as needed. Demand has come down. Consumer demand has come down. So I know that's affected China as well. But I know there's a big surge for domestic demand as well. So hopefully, I think that's offsetting maybe the import exporting for the economy itself.
Yes, I agree. The domestic demand is huge, and for me personally, for the next 3 or 4 months, I'm just focusing on the domestic market. Obviously, I want to focus on the international market, but I've just got to see how things go and rely on very valuable contacts like yourself, Rob. And because I'm here in China at the moment and I can't go out, so I have to look for distributors to help me when the international market is opening, because you know better than me for the international market. So for me, I'm just focusing on the domestic market right now.
What industries in China are thriving right now?
I think all industries are back and up and going right now. There's a lot of demand because not only do I have the Cooka manufacturer, I also have a trading and branding company. I mean, that's one of my passions, and I have this company as well. So there's a lot of demand from the domestic market for international products, specifically consumable style products like beef and wine and facial products, all these sorts of products. Branded international products. There's a huge demand at the moment for that. And people like myself who are here in China and have connections to bring things in of international products, it's a huge advantage.
Well, it's very fascinating to hear for someone on the ground. I mean, I'm just blown away because I haven't been able to travel, and all we hear is hearsay. But listening to someone yourself who's been living for 20 years in China, understands the culture now and is doing business daily, day to day, and sees the changes and moving forward. It's to me, it's outstanding. I'm very thankful to have met you to understand what's going on, because I get information from my team on the ground, but also hearing other perspective, other people living there, and seeing their insights and how it's happening, how their daily living is, how manufacturing, how supply chain, how that is all working and evolving and continuously moving forward. It's very fascinating how China can scale and scale big really quickly. So, but another question I have for you before we wrap this up is, what do you see for the future in China and the world? What is your expectation? What's your foresight and for your predictions of really what's going to happen in the future?
Okay, as far as I'm concerned, for my personal predictions, it might not be anybody else's, but I'm involved in marketing and branding, and and also innovation. And what I see is the Chinese, they've been manufacturing for 20 years now. I've been here for 20 years, and I think they're one of the top. I don't want to be controversial. One of the top manufacturers in the world, but now they're spending a lot of money on innovation. And I myself, I'm in a government-run innovation center, and I talk daily with the head of the innovation center on how he can assist me. Just today, we were talking about doing a networking event so that we can all assist each other with different innovation and this sort of thing. So I see China focusing a lot on innovation. They've got the manufacture. Now they'll be focusing more on the digital marketing and how to get the market by using Amazon or Alibaba or even Facebook and LinkedIn and this sort of thing. Unfortunately, there's this big VPN and it's a huge controversial in between, but I don't know. I've already had talks with the telecom people here, and they have a means to turn on a VPN and turn it off. So, but it's a whole political thing. But I can see a lot more brands coming out of China in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen it myself. China is a big backer of innovation all over the world, not just in China itself. I know the big companies are coming to the States, backing a lot of startups, a lot of technology. Of course, 5G is the biggest say, and the challenges that's politically with Huawei and all these things. But they're really pushing, and they have the power, they have the money, and they have the manpower. So it's just setting politics aside. They're contributing a lot in the next 5 to 10 years. I do believe too. It's kind of a race to see who's going to innovate more in the innovation moving forward. But overall, I'm in the middle ground everywhere. We have business globally. I think China is a great powerhouse. They're a great source. I think every country within America is also one of the biggest innovators in the world, one of the biggest powerhouses in the world with innovation and products, of course. But I think every country has its own core values and what they can provide to the world globally, as we are one world and providing products, innovation, technology, supply chain everywhere. So, but as I said, it's fascinating for me, and I really like talking to people like yourselves with their experience, and especially in different regions of the world, so I can learn, understand what's going on, and it can make my decisions of my company, what's going on with people, how decisions with management, and how we also grow and where we invest as well, right? So,
Yeah.
but I wanted to say before we end this up, do you have anything to add, anything like to share before we wrap this up?
Anything to add? Just innovation. I mean, I joined this innovation competition for the Greater Bay Area of Guangdong, and I think my product's pretty good.
Okay.
I think mine's 10 out of 10, but I only came 17th out of 308. So there's a lot of things coming, and the Chinese are not competing with the world; they're competing with themselves. I mean, I was in a competition with them, right? And it was a competition with themselves, and now they're getting more and more creative. I mean, I would say as a marketing person, I'm quite a creative person. I understand a lot about creation and innovation. And the 20 years previous, they didn't have the imagination. But over the 20 years, they've been product designing for so long. They're as creative as we are and thinking outside the box. And I'm not saying, you've got to understand China. I mean, just 50 years ago, they were all farmers, and it was a farming culture. So they've come so far in such a short time. I mean, I'm just outstanding. I mean, the infrastructure here is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, I can get to Shenzhen on a metro very easily. Whereas if I'm back in my hometown in England, I've got to take British Rail,
Yeah, I mean, firsthand, I have the experience too. It's amazing with the infrastructure, high-speed trains, the way you travel. Sometimes the high-speed trains are faster than planes, these days, because of all the delays and things. There's so much air travel. Well, this is pre-pandemic when I was traveling. We would take from Shenzhen a train 5 hours from Shenzhen to Shanghai, and we can have internet the whole way. But in the plane, you have security. You get in the plane, even the plane's 2.5 hours flight, but actually the train's actually more efficient because it's always on time and you have internet the whole way. So you can work and you can have meetings. So these are a lot of the things that are fascinating with what innovation has done in Asia and China in general. But once again, I want to thank you, Paul. Thanks a lot for coming on this. Thanks for sharing your insights, your company information, what's going on in China on the ground, and your experience. It's been hopefully all the listeners are enlightened and inspired of what's happening, and to give a different perspective of really what's going on than what people hear in the news, and really how we're all trying to move forward, and every country is trying to move forward past this, put this behind us, and innovate and be a better country in general. But thank you again. And as I always leave all the podcasts, remember, guys, be smart, be thoughtful, be generous. Thank you, Paul. And I'll be talking to you again soon.
Thanks for having me on, Rob. And if anyone has any questions for me, you can always click the link below, right, Rob?
Yes.
And always connect with me, and I can answer any questions, honestly, of my experience here in Guangdong, China.
Thank you, Paul. Take care, guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.